Morning. This is William Birdsong, Extension Specialist for row crops located in Southeast Alabama. I'm going to give a little canola and Carinata update. Certainly it's that time of the year if you're going to plant either one of these crops to consider what's going on with these crops, and that's the purpose of this update. And I just want to say that canola, just a brief summary, is a Nebraska family and is developed to get rid of glucosinonates and uric acid, which are believed to be inedible or toxic in high doses. It's certainly used as an oil in the healthy frying and oil industry. It's also a winter crop that can be planted in the fall and harvested in late spring, lending itself to a double cropping system. And certainly I feel like that this is where it has one of its advantages. The planting date for North Alabama, you can see it's what they recommended. We're basically a little bit past that. It doesn't mean that we can't still plant some canola, but certainly we need to get it planted as soon as possible from September the 20th to October the 15th. For South Alabama, we're still very much into that window from October the 15th to November the 15th. But some of the key points is do not delay planting. Young seedlings are most susceptible to cold damage early in the plant's life. One good point I should make this year is they've recommended, or they forecasted, we're in a La Nina fall winter, which typically means a little warmer and drier winter. So hopefully that would prevent some of the hard freezes that would damage some of the young seedlings. We certainly need to examine the chemicals used in previous crops, such as Cadre or Strong Arm. And for those in the peanut industry, that's compounds that you would find that would be used in that industry. Getting a stand is probably the most difficult aspect of growing canola. But an update from AgStrong, and that's one of the companies, especially for South Alabama, that markets canola. But and I would feel like they would be marketed in probably all of Alabama, or they are certainly a source. But from AgStrong, they're not seeking canola production in the Southeast for the fall of 2017 due to the uncertainty of the Dow-DuPont merger. However, organic production would be considered. There are a few cases out there where there is some organic acreage. I know that there's a dairy in Southeast Alabama that it's a certified organic dairy. And if you were to have some cropland that would be available as organic, the price for organic production would be 2 to 2.25 times the regular price offered for canola, which is somewhere around $8 per bushel. Some things to come, clear field technology and canola varieties, which means that mustard can be controlled with post-emergent sprays. This will be huge because mustard certainly is a weed that we find very difficult to get out of the canola, and so since it's a Nebraska family as well, so that's good news of something to come with clear field technology. Also, with that technology, farmers can plant behind Cadre, and so for those of us in peanut country, where there's a good bit of Cadre that's used, and it prevents a lot of that acreage from going to canola production. Certainly this will be a big plus. Because a lot of times the peanuts are harvested in late August through September and early October, lending that a lot of that acreage available to canola production. If we could double crop it behind canola into cotton or soybeans. Jumping forward to Carinata, I think this would be the crop that, since canola seems to be on the back burner for 2017, this crop very likely could be the ones you might want to be interested in pursuing. Again, like canola, it's in the brassica family. However, it's being developed and marketed for its properties for use as a biofuel in the jet industry. Companies which contract canola, this is a very important point, will not contract with you if you grow Carinata because of contamination concerns. Agrosoma, which is a company that's handling the Carinata, requires 3-year interval between canola and Carinata. Much like canola, the window of planting is from mid-October through mid-November. Their 2017 plan is Agrex is assisting Agrosoma and contracted the Carinata. Agrosoma is contracted as well, but many farmers may use Agrex marketing their corn or soybeans. So they certainly have been making phone calls and sending out packets to prospective producers working to try to get some Carinata acreage. The recommendation production area is North Florida, all of Alabama, and all of Georgia, eastern Mississippi, and looking at demonstrations in Arkansas, in which this is kind of a change from some in the past. They have been really looking from Montgomery south as far as Alabama is concerned. And so now they're looking for the whole state of Alabama. And so that certainly opens up some acreage and some possibilities for northern Alabama. There are going to be several variety trials with multiple universities. Continue to do that. I know the University of Florida has done a lot of work with variety trials. They certainly have made a lot of advancement. Speaking with David Wright, University of Florida, who has done a lot of work with Carinata. In previous years, it felt like that the varieties that were going to be best suited in Carinata hadn't come out yet. And with a few years down the road, I feel more encouraged by considering Carinata now as opposed to 2 or 3 years ago. I feel like we got better varieties out there for productivity. They're close to gaining approvals for dairy and poultry seed meal for the U.S., which would be huge. And they already have approval for beef cattle. It's kind of the way it was last year, so it's still kind of in a holding pattern for that right now. Just an update on the biofuel. The Navy is pleased with the results of biofuel testing. Some have converted 30 to 50% to biofuel. And so I certainly feel like that this will a trend that will continue. And for the 2017-2018 season, there'll be commercial with approximately 25,000 acres that they're going to be looking for. They have about 10,000 acres already contracted. So there's certainly some more room for some acreage to be contracted to Carinata production. They'll continue to test new varieties and best management practices for the Southeast. Agrosoma will also continue to support research and development with local universities. I do know that they have already been looking at doing research with Auburn and different variety trials, maybe some different tillage trials and such. And so some of you out there are working with that. So we're going to be continuing to gain information about the Carinata crop. Some production guidelines, and this is coming straight from Agrosoma. The fields may need to be approved if the field's too sandy of a soil type, so they do not want to put Carinata on deep sands. They'd rather it be on much heavier, higher CEC soil types. So certainly keep that in mind if you're selecting a field for Carinata production. The cost of the seed will be $250 per bag. So you would buy the seed. You need to put in an order for that as soon as possible if you're going to be considering growing Carinata. Just some ideas on the cost per acre, how it breaks down. The seeding rate is around 5 to 6 pounds per acre. So you're looking at $25 to $30 per acre. Again, as we stated earlier, their desires for heavier clay type soils as opposed to deep sands. And so just giving a kind of a brief hit on the production cost. Estimated production cost is doing it right and fertilizing the Carinata and taking care of it as it should be. For a full program, it's going to be somewhere between $250 and $285 an acre. Estimated production is from 35 to 50 bushels per acre. As I stated earlier, the varieties that they have released at this point in time, I feel like that the likelihood of producing these yields are a lot better now than what it was 2 or 3 years ago. So even if some of you tried Carinata 3 years ago and were disappointed, and I know we've had some weather challenges in the past 2 or 3 years. For example, last year was extremely dry, and really did not have enough moisture unless it was under irrigated situation to germinate the seed and get a stand of Carinata. This year we've recently had some rains, and so I know that recently some tropical moisture here in the southeast Alabama, we've received between ½ inch and 3 inches of rain. So certainly we've got some moisture that we could get the Carinata in. Just looking at some growth returns from that kind of yield is somewhere between $297 and $680 per acre. And so if we can get up in the upwards of the 50 bushels per acre, and see that's a pretty good return. And so that certainly makes that crop worth considering for some producers, which is somewhere around $8.50 per bushel contracted price. Agrosoma will provide an agronomist. I think this is extremely important to help monitor and advise the growing and assist with harvest setup. And I must emphasize harvest setup is very important. There have been some stories a few years ago, some very good Carinata that was produced in South Georgia, but the combine was not set up very well at all, and they probably lost half of the production. And so we certainly do not want to do that, because that's where our profits would be. And so they would assist with harvest setup. So let's take advantage of that assistance. There's going to be no acre limitations, but again, you would need to purchase a seed. They've had different deals in the past where they would provide seed and provide a base value, regardless of what your base value or base pay to you, regardless of what your yield was. That's not the way it is anymore. It's strictly commercial, and you would be purchasing the seed and putting all the inputs into it, and then the contracted price would be $8.50 per bushel. So certainly we want to work to be productive, choose our most possible productive fields. I feel like Carinata is something that could work well behind corn, and because corn would be harvested earlier, where we can have those fields to be available to an appropriate window of planting for Carinata. Dr. Christine Bliss is the specialist for an agronomist for Agrosoma, and her cell number here is listed on the screen, as well as her office number. Certainly she would be glad and happy to assist you. And even though I had said that Agrex was contracting Carinata, certainly Agrosoma is contracting Carinata directly. So my suggestion would be to contact Dr. Bliss unless you have got a relationship with Agrex as far as any contracts are concerned. And again, we're going to be, we as well here at the Wiregrass Station, as well as some other regional agents across the state of Alabama, are going to be working with Dr. Austin Hagan and Dr. Bliss on putting in some different Carinata trials this year. And so this is certainly a collaborative effort through Extension. We feel like there's some possibilities for this crop, and we don't necessarily think people should just be going planting the excessive amount, but try a limited production and work to do a good job, learn how to produce this crop, how to grow this crop, and therefore you can determine your management time allotment. But we certainly feel like there's some possibilities for this crop in Alabama with the better varieties that's going to be yielding more, and I feel like there's a future for Carinata here in the Southeast. And so we certainly want to take any of your questions. And as you can see on my screen, my cell number as well as my office number, and we will work with other specialists and agents across the state to get you the information that you need and answers. And we hope to have a Carinata field day this next spring to further highlight this crop and its possibilities. If you have any questions, certainly you can give me a call, and we'll try to find you the answer to help you with learning more about canola as well as Carinata.